My name isn't important. Call me Tom. I'm 34. I work in logistics, and I live in a small town in the Midwest where nothing ever happens. That's what I loved about this place when I moved here. No crime to speak of, neighbors who wave, kids who still play outside until the street lights come on. It felt safe. That was 3 years ago. Now I sleep with a deadbolt, a security bar, and a baseball bat next to my bed, and I still don't feel safe. The trouble started with a package, not a package delivered to my house, a package I delivered. See, I also do some freelance work for a courier service. Nothing fancy, just picking up prescriptions, legal documents, sometimes boxes of baked goods from people who don't trust the mail. It pays for my truck payment, and it gets me out of the house. One Tuesday evening in October, I got a dispatch to pick up a parcel from an address on the edge of town. The note said medical supplies, which usually meant medication for an elderly or homebound person. I drove out there around 7 o'clock. The sun was already down and the street lights on that road were few and far between. The house was a modest ranch style, set back from the road behind a row of overgrown juniper bushes. The porch light was off, no car in the driveway. I double-checked the address on my phone. This was the place. I walked up to the front door and knocked. No answer. I knocked again, harder this time. A minute passed. I was about to leave when I heard footsteps inside. Slow, heavy, like someone dragging their feet across carpet. The door opened about 4 inches. A chain lock was still on. Through the gap, I could see a sliver of a face. An old woman, I thought, maybe 70 or 75. Her eye was pale blue, almost white, and it stared at me without blinking. "Delivery for Margaret," I said, holding up the small box. She didn't say anything. Her hand appeared through the gap, thin, bony, with yellowed fingernails, and took the box. I waited for her to sign the digital pad, but she just closed the door. The lock clicked. The footsteps shuffled away. I stood there for a second, feeling unsettled, but not sure why. Then I went back to my truck and marked the delivery as complete. That should have been the end of it. But a week later, I got another dispatch. Same address, same name, Margaret. This time, the note said personal effects. The box was larger, heavier, and it rattled when I picked it up. I drove out there again. Same dark house, same missing car. This time, when I knocked, the door opened wider. No chain locks. The old woman stood in the doorway wearing a housecoat that hung loose on her frail frame. Her hair was thin and gray, pulled back in a messy bun. Her face was gaunt, her cheeks sunken, and her eyes, both of them now visible, had that same pale, milky quality. "Milky, you're the boy from last week," she said. Not a question. "Yes, ma'am. I have another delivery for you." She smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was the kind of smile you give when you know something the other person doesn't. "Bring it inside," she said, stepping back. I hesitated. Company policy said not to enter a customer's home unless absolutely necessary. But the box was heavy, and she was old, and I didn't want to be rude, so I carried it over the threshold. The smell hit me immediately. It wasn't the smell of old people or dirty laundry. It was something else, something sweet and rotten, like fruit left out too long. I set the box on a small table in the entryway and tried not to breathe through my nose. "Thank you, boy," she said. "Would you like some tea?" "No, ma'am, I need to get going." "You're in a hurry, that's a shame." She tilted her head, studying me. "You have kind eyes." My husband had kind eyes. I didn't know what to say to that. I just nodded and backed toward the door. As I reached for the handle, I heard something from the back of the house. A thump, then another, like someone hitting a wall. The old woman's smile didn't waver. "Just the house settling," she said. "Old houses make noises." I left. I got in my truck and drove away, and I told myself I was being ridiculous. She was just an eccentric old lady. The smell was probably from a litter box or a forgotten trash can. The thumps were just pipes, or the wind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. I started paying attention to that address. Whenever I drove past it, which wasn't often, but sometimes I'd take a longer route just to check. The house was always dark. No lights in the windows, no car, no sign of life except for the occasional delivery truck parked out front. I asked my dispatcher about Margaret. He said the deliveries were prepaid and automated, set up by a family member or maybe a lawyer. He didn't have any other information. A month later, I got a third dispatch to the same address. This time, the box was small, light. When I shook it, I didn't hear anything. I drove out there on a rainy November evening, hoping to just drop it and go. The porch light was on for the first time. There was a car in the driveway, an old sedan with out-of-state plates. I knocked, and a man answered. He was maybe 50, wearing a suit that didn't fit well, with red-rimmed eyes and a tired face. "Are you Margaret's son?" I asked. He stared at me for a second. Then he said, "My mother passed away 3 weeks ago." I felt my stomach drop. "I'm sorry, I didn't know. I have a delivery here for her." The man took the box. He turned it over in his hands, then looked at me. "Who sent this?" "I don't know. It just comes through the system." He opened the box right there in the doorway. Inside was a key, an old brass key, tarnished and scratched. tied to a small paper tag. On the tag, handwritten in careful cursive, were 2 words, basement door. The man looked past me toward the interior of the house. "We haven't been in the basement," he said quietly. "The smell was too bad. We thought it was just her. She hadn't been taking care of herself." I didn't say anything. He stepped aside. "Would you come with me? I don't want to go down there alone." I should have said no. Every instinct told me to leave, but I followed him inside. The house was exactly as I remembered it. The same furniture, the same dim lighting, the same sweet, rotten smell, stronger now than before. The man, his name was David, he told me, led me to a door in the kitchen, a basement door. It had a padlock on it, old and rusted. He held up the key. "This was delivered to her after she died." "Who would do that?" I didn't have an answer. He unlocked the padlock. The door swung open, revealing wooden stairs descending into darkness. The smell coming up from below was overwhelming. I covered my nose and mouth with my shirt. David found a flashlight in a drawer and clicked it on. He started down the stairs. I followed. The basement was unfinished. Concrete floor, stone walls, exposed ceiling joists, and in the middle of the room, on a stained mattress, was a body. Not Margaret. Someone else? A man, I think. It was hard to tell. The face was gone. The hands were tied to the bed frame with rope that had been there a long time. David made a sound, a kind of choked sob, and dropped the flashlight. It rolled across the floor, casting wild shadows. I picked it up and aimed the beam at the walls. That's when I saw the photographs. Dozens of them, tacked to the stone walls, taped to the ceiling joists, tucked into the gaps between the stones. Photographs of people, men and women, young and old. Some of them looked like they'd been taken from a distance, through windows, across parking lots. Others were close up, intimate, people sleeping. And in the corner of the basement, next to a small table, I saw a stack of boxes. The same kind of boxes I'd been delivering, dozens of them. Some opened, some still sealed. David was on his knees, crying. I pulled out my phone and called 911. The police came, they took statements, they cordoned off the house. They asked me a lot of questions I couldn't answer. Who was the dead man? I didn't know. Who sent the key? I didn't know. How long had Margaret been keeping people in her basement? I didn't know. The investigation went on for months. They identified the dead man as a homeless person who'd been reported missing 2 years earlier. They found DNA from at least 3 other individuals in the basement. But no bodies, no remains, just traces, blood, hair, fibers. Margaret had died of natural causes, heart failure. She was 78 years old. The neighbors described her as quiet, keep to herself, always waving from her porch. No one knew about the basement. No one knew about the photographs, except me. I knew about the deliveries. I knew about the boxes. I knew that for months. I had been bringing things to that house, supplies maybe, or trophies, or instructions. I don't know who was sending those packages. The trail went cold. The return addresses were fake. The payment method was untraceable cash. It was as if someone, or something, had been orchestrating the whole thing from a distance. And when Margaret died, they just stopped. Sometimes I wonder if the packages were meant for me, if I was supposed to find the basement, if I was supposed to be the one to unlock that door. Other times I wonder if there are other houses, other old women, other basements. I don't do courier work anymore. I don't answer my door after dark. And whenever I smell something sweet and rotten, I hold my breath and walk the other way. Because I know now that the scariest things aren't monsters or ghosts. They're the things that hide in plain sight. The neighbors who wave, the old ladies who need their medicine, the packages that keep arriving long after the person is dead. I still have the dispatcher's number saved in my phone. I've thought about calling him, asking if any new deliveries have come in for Margaret, just to see if someone's still sending them, but I'm afraid of what the answer might be. I need to tell you about the summer I worked at a drive-in movie theater. It was the kind of job you take when you're 17 and you don't really care about money. You just want something to do with your nights. The theater was called the Starlight, and it had been there since 1955. 2 screens, a concession stand that sold popcorn so salty it made your lips bleed, and a gravel lot that held about 200 cars on a busy night. On slow nights, it was just me, the crickets, and the faint glow of the screen reflecting off empty windshields. My job was simple. I collected tickets at the entrance, directed people to parking spots, and after the last movie ended, usually around midnight, I walked the entire lot with a trash bag and a flashlight, picking up what people left behind. Bottles, wrappers, diapers, sometimes a forgotten phone or a lost shoe. It was boring, but I was 17, and boring was fine. I listened to music on my headphones and pretended I was somewhere else. The trouble started in July. A heat wave had settled over the town, and even at midnight the air was thick and wet, like breathing through a washcloth. I was doing my post-movie cleanup around 12:30 a.m. when I noticed a car still parked in the far corner of the lot, a dark sedan, windows tinted so dark I couldn't see inside. The engine was off, no lights, just sitting there, motionless like it had been there for hours. I walked over and knocked on the driver's side window. No response. I knocked again, harder, nothing. I pressed my face against the glass, but the tint was too dark. I could only make out shadows. Then the window rolled down about an inch, and I caught a whiff of something metallic. Blood, maybe, or something else. Something that made my stomach turn. "Sir, the theater's closed," I said. "You need to leave." A voice came from inside. Low, calm, almost gentle. "I'm waiting for someone." "They're not coming, everyone's gone." The window rolled back up. The car didn't move. I stood there for a minute, then walked back to the concession stand and told my manager, a guy named Rick, who'd been working at the Starlight since the 70s and had the sun-damaged skin and the 1,000-yard stare to prove it. Rick sighed and lit a cigarette. "Probably just a drunk," he said, exhaling smoke. "Leave him be. He'll drive off when he's ready." I went back to my cleanup. An hour later, the sedan was still there. I called out to it from a distance. No answer. I walked over again and shone my flashlight through the window. The car was empty. I mean, completely empty. No driver, no passenger. Just the faint glow of the dome light reflecting off the upholstery. I checked the doors. All locked. The windows were up. The interior was pristine. No trash, no personal items, no fast food wrappers, nothing. Just a key in the ignition, and that faint, metallic smell that I couldn't place. I called Rick. He came out, looked at the car, and shrugged. "Maybe they walked home. We'll call a tow truck in the morning." But in the morning, the car was gone. The tow truck driver said no one had called him. The security cameras, what few we had, and they were ancient, showed the car driving away at 3:17 a.m., headlights off, moving slowly toward the exit like a ghost. I forgot about it until the next week, when another car appeared in the same corner. Different make, different model, but same dark-tinted windows, same empty interior, same locked doors, same faint metallic smell. This time I didn't wait. I called the police. They came, ran the plates, and told me the car was registered to a woman who'd been reported missing 6 months earlier. Her name was Denise. She was 42. She'd left for work one morning and never came home. Her husband had been looking for her ever since. The police broke into the car. They found nothing. No blood, no fingerprints, no signs of struggle. Just a single item in the glove compartment. A photograph. A picture of the drive-in theater, taken from the parking lot, with a date stamped on the back. The date was the day after Denise disappeared. I felt cold. I asked the officer what it meant. He said it probably meant nothing. Coincidences happen. People abandon cars, people take weird photos. Then he left and the car was towed, and I went back to work. But the cars kept appearing, every week, sometimes twice a week. Different vehicles, different plates, but always the same corner, always empty, always with a photograph of the theater somewhere inside. The police stopped coming after the third time. They said it was a prank. They said someone was messing with me. I knew it wasn't a prank, because I started to notice something else. The cars weren't abandoned. They were left, deliberately. Whoever was driving them would pull into the lot, park in the exact same spot, leave the keys in the ignition and walk away. But walk away to where? The theater was surrounded by cornfields and woods. There was no bus stop, no taxi stand, no houses within walking distance. The nearest town was 7 miles away. I started staying after my shift. I'd hide in the concession stand, turn off all the lights, and watch the corner of the lot through a gap in the plywood. At first, nothing happened, just the wind and the crickets and the distant sound of the highway. Then, on a Tuesday night in mid-August, I saw something. A figure was walking across the field behind the screen, tall, thin, moving slowly, like it was in no hurry. It didn't carry a flashlight. It didn't stumble on the uneven ground. It just walked, steady and deliberate, toward the parking lot. I held my breath. The figure reached the corner of the lot and stopped. It stood there for what felt like minutes, facing the theater. Facing me, I couldn't make out any features, just a dark shape against the darker sky. Then it turned and walked away, not back toward the field, toward the exit, toward the road. And by the time I worked up the courage to go outside, it was gone. But in the corner of the lot, there was a new car, a minivan this time, dark green, engine ticking as it cooled. I walked to the minivan and shone my flashlight inside. Empty, of course. But on the passenger seat, I saw a photograph. I opened the door, it was unlocked, and picked it up. The photograph showed the concession stand. My face was visible in the window looking out. The date stamped on the back was that night's date. Today, someone had taken a picture of me in the concession stand while I was watching for them. While I was hidden in the dark, they had seen me and I hadn't seen them. I ran back inside, I locked the doors, I called the police again, and this time, when they arrived, I showed them the photograph. The officer, a different one, younger, more attentive, looked at it for a long time. Then he asked me if I had any enemies. I said no. I was 17. I worked at a drive-in. Who would want to hurt me? He didn't have an answer. He took the photograph as evidence and said he'd file a report. Then he left, and I was alone again. I quit the next day. Rick didn't ask why. He just nodded and handed me my last paycheck. "You're not the first," he said. I asked him what he meant. He leaned against the counter and lit a cigarette. The lighter flame illuminated his face for a second, and I saw something in his eyes. Not surprise, recognition. "The Starlight's been here since '55, he said. "In all that time, we've had maybe a dozen kids work the night shift. Every few years, someone starts seeing things. Cars that shouldn't be there, people walking in the field, photographs appearing out of nowhere. And then they quit, just like you. You never called the police?" I called. They never found anything. After a while, I stopped calling. It's just part of the job, I guess. Something about this place. Something that likes to watch. I never went back to the Starlight. I drove past it a few years later, and it was closed. Weeds growing through the gravel, the screens crumbling, the concession stand boarded up. The corner of the lot where the cars used to appear was overgrown with brush and poison ivy. But sometimes late at night, I think about those cars, about the photographs, about the figure walking across the field, and I wonder if the Starlight is really closed, or if it's just waiting for someone else to take the night shift, waiting for another 17-year-old who doesn't know any better. I still have one of the photographs, not the one the police took, a different one. I found it tucked into my jacket pocket a week after I quit. I don't know how it got there. I never printed it. I never even saw it before that moment. The photograph shows me asleep in my own bed. The angle is from my bedroom window. The date on the back is 3 days after I quit. I don't know who took it. I don't know how they found my address. I don't know why they stopped. But I haven't slept with my blinds open since that day, and I never will again. That was 15 years ago. I've moved 3 times. I've changed my phone number twice. But last month I found a photograph in my mailbox. No envelope, no return address, just a glossy print of the Starlight Drive-In, taken recently. I could tell because the screen was gone, replaced by a storage unit complex. On the back, a date, tomorrow's date. I'm writing this from a hotel room 40 miles away. I don't know if that's far enough. I don't know if anywhere is far enough. All I know is that whatever was watching me at the Starlight never stopped. It just got patient. And now, after 15 years, it wants me to know that it remembers my face. This is the story I've never told anyone, because some things don't fade. Some things just sit in the back of your mind, getting sharper with time. My grandfather died when I was 12. He was a quiet man, a farmer, the kind of person who spoke more with his hands than his mouth. He had thick knuckles from working the soil, and a way of looking at the horizon that made you think he could see things other people couldn't. He left me his old truck in his will, a 1986 Ford F-150, rusted and dented with a bench seat, held together by duct tape, and a radio that only picked up static when you drove under power lines. I wasn't old enough to drive it yet, but I loved that truck. I used to sit in the driver's seat for hours, turning the steering wheel and pretending I was going somewhere far away. After he died, my grandmother started acting strange. Not sad exactly, focused. She spent hours in the basement, moving boxes, rearranging things, muttering to herself. When I asked what she was doing, she said she was getting ready. I didn't ask for what. I was 12. I thought she was just grieving. The summer I turned 16, my grandmother asked me to clean out the basement. She said she was too old to do it herself, and my parents were too busy with work. I didn't mind. I liked being in that house, even if it smelled like mothballs and old paper and something else I couldn't identify. Something that reminded me of the crawl space under the porch, where I used to find dead mice. The basement was unfinished, like most basements in farmhouses. Concrete floor, stone walls that wept moisture in the spring, a single light bulb hanging from a frayed wire. There were boxes everywhere, some labeled, some not, stacked along the walls and piled in the corners like a maze. I started with the labeled ones. Christmas decorations, tax returns 1985 to 1990, baby clothes. Nothing interesting, just the accumulated debris of a long life. Then I found a box that wasn't labeled. It was smaller than the others, made of dark wood instead of cardboard, with a brass latch and a small padlock. The padlock was old, the kind you could open with a paperclip or a bobby pin. I found a bobby pin in my pocket. I have no idea why I had a bobby pin. I was a 16-year-old boy with short hair, and picked the lock. It clicked open easily, like it had been waiting for someone to open it. Inside the box was a journal. Leather-bound, the pages were yellowed and brittle at the edges. The handwriting inside was my grandfather's. I recognized it from the birthday cards he used to send me, the ones with the crisp, careful letters that looked like they'd been drawn rather than written. The first entry was dated March 14th, 1982. Found another one today, down by the creek. same as the others. No blood, no marks, just empty, like someone turned off a light and walked away. The sheriff came by, asked if I'd seen anything. I told him no. What was I supposed to say? Does the creek take people? That it's been taking people for as long as I can remember? He'd think I was crazy. I turned the page. The next entry was a week later, April 3rd, 1982. Drove past the creek this morning. The ground is soft from the rain. Saw footprints leading to the water, but none coming out. Same as last time, same as always. I've started marking the dates on the map in the barn. I have 12 marks now, 12 people, 12 times the land has been taken. I kept reading. The journal spanned 40 years. Dozens of entries, dozens of names, dates, locations, descriptions of people who'd gone missing in the county, not just near the creek, but in the woods, the fields, even on the roads. My grandfather had been tracking them, watching, waiting, and he knew that it wasn't random. It was the land itself, hungry, patient, and he was the only one who saw it. The last entry was dated a week before he died. I know what's taking them now. My father told me before he passed. His father told him, it's not a person, it's not an animal, it's the land, the creek, the woods, the fields. They're hungry, they've always been hungry, and I've been feeding them without meaning to. Every time I plowed a field, every time I dug a well, I was stirring something up, something that was sleeping. There's a way to stop it, a trade. One life for another. My father taught me that. He made a trade when I was a boy. I didn't know it then. I thought the man who disappeared was just a drifter, but my father knew. He gave the land what it wanted so the rest of us could live. I've been putting it off for years. I don't want to do what my father did. I don't want to choose, but the hunger is getting worse. It's taking more, so I'll do what needs to be done. I'm sorry, Margaret. I'm sorry, Tom. I hope you never have to understand. I hope the land forgets about this family after I'm gone. I closed the journal. My hands were shaking so badly that I could barely hold them. I put it back in the box, locked the padlock, and pushed the box behind the others. I didn't tell anyone what I'd found. I didn't know how. What was I supposed to say? Did my grandfather believe the land was eating people? The next day I asked my grandmother about the creek. We were sitting on the porch, shelling peas into a metal bowl. She looked at me with those pale, tired eyes and said, "Don't go near it, you hear me? Don't ever go near it." Why? Because things happen there. Things I can't explain. Things your grandfather tried to stop. What did he do? She was quiet for a long time. The only sound was the peas falling into the bowl. Then she said, "He made a deal, a trade, so the rest of us could live. And then he died a week later. The doctor said it was his heart, but I knew. The land took what it was owed. I didn't ask for more. I didn't want to know. I'm 32 now. My grandmother passed away 5 years ago. The farm was sold to a developer. The house was demolished to make room for a subdivision. But the creek is still there. It runs through a narrow strip of protected woodland behind the new houses. The people who live there probably don't even know it exists. I drove past the subdivision last fall on my way to a job interview. I pulled over and walked through the backyards until I found the tree line. The creek was exactly where I remembered it. Beautiful, clear, shallow, lined with smooth stones and tall grass that swayed in the breeze. There was no sign that anything was wrong. No smell, no strange sounds, no feeling of being watched, just the gentle murmur of water over rocks. But as I stood there, I noticed something in the water. A photograph face down, half submerged near the bank. I waded in, the water was cold even though my boots, and picked it up. The photograph showed a man, late 20s maybe. Dark hair, glasses, a tired smile. He was standing in front of a house I didn't recognize. On the back, in handwriting I recognized as my grandfather's, was a name and a date. The name was mine. The date was today. I dropped the photograph and ran. I didn't look back. I didn't go to the job interview. I drove straight home, locked all my doors, and sat in my living room with every light on until the sun came up. That was 8 months ago. I've noticed things since that day. Small things at first. A knock on my door at 3 a.m. that stops as soon as I get up. A shadow in my backyard that doesn't match any tree or fence. A cold spot in my bedroom that moves from corner to corner like it's pacing. Then bigger things. Photographs appearing in places they shouldn't be. Under my pillow. Inside my shoes. Taped to the inside of my medicine cabinet. All of them show me. Sleeping, eating, driving, standing in my own backyard. The dates on the back are always in the past, but they're getting closer to the present. The most recent one I found was dated yesterday. I don't know what's happening. I don't know if the land is still hungry, or if it's always been hungry, or if my grandfather's trade didn't work as well as he hoped. I don't know if I'm supposed to make a trade of my own, if I'm supposed to choose someone to take my place. I've thought about going back to the creek, about finishing what my grandfather started, about making a deal, but I don't know who I would trade. I don't know how. I don't know if it would even work. And I'm terrified that if I go back, I won't come out again. I'll just be another entry in someone else's journal. Another name, another date, another person who went to the creek and never returned. So I do nothing. I stay inside, I keep my lights on, I sleep with a baseball bat next to my bed, and I pretend that I don't see the photograph that appeared on my nightstand this morning. The one that shows me sitting exactly where I'm sitting right now, writing this story, with a date on the back that hasn't arrived yet. My grandfather tried to protect us. He made a deal. But deals don't last forever. And the hunger, I think, is patient. It can wait. It's been waiting for a very long time. I don't know if writing this down will help. I don't know if anyone will believe me. But I needed to put it somewhere. I needed someone else to know. Because if something happens to me, if I go to the creek and don't come back, I want there to be a record. I want someone to find this and understand. The land is hungry. It always has been. And it hasn't forgotten my name.